Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. This one for the spring equinox of 2022, an incredibly important event in Western tropical astrology. Now what I'm going to do is tell you the dates that this is going to occur, the 20th of March in London, in New York, LA and Delhi. But in Sydney, it's the following day on the 21st. And on the screen now, you can see exactly what time it does occur in your particular time zone. Now, the Western Tropical Zodiac is predicated on the seasons. So we're entering the first season of the journey of the sun. This coincides with the sun returning to the sign of Aries. This is very, very important. Aries is a fire sign. It's ruled by Mars, the planet of action. And also it is cardinal, so it's very much to do with authority and leadership. And the energy that's created on the moment that the spring equinox occurs can permeate through the next 13 weeks until we have the summer solstice in the sign of Cancer. Now, to give you some idea of how powerful these four quadrants, cardinal quadrants, can be that the year is divided into, the last quadrant in Capricorn showed a really important midpoint between the sun and the moon that coincided or was conjunct Algorab, which is a very disruptive and malicious, potentially malicious fixed star. That's squared with Mercury, the planet of relating. Also, we had the moon in its home zone of Cancer opposed by the powerful Pluto. Sadly, we've seen people driven out of their homes and lots of homes destroyed. Now that may seem a rather broad symbolic point, but also within that chart we also had clashes between Saturn and Uranus. So these influences are very powerful. So what I want to do in this presentation is share with you the event chart and what we can expect over the next 13 weeks. But please stay with me because I then will dive deep and give you a forecast for each of the 12 zodiac signs. And you can watch these with regard to your sun or your ascendant. It's your choice. Now, if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. If you would care to subscribe, I'd be honoured. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you'll get an alert from YouTube. Also, if you'd like to get your free written daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, I've been writing these for over 25 years. Please see the subscription link below, and it would be lovely to have you with me. Finally, if you'd like to take advantage of my special package of a 12-month forecast and a character analysis based on your personal birth data, totally unique to you and rises above this zodiac broadcast in terms of each of the 12 signs, please see the link below because there's a 30% off special offer. So on the screen now you can see the chart wheel for this event. Now my chart is based on Greenwich, Universal Central Time, which gives us an ascendant in the sign of Virgo. Now Virgo is about precision, but it is also about being of service to others. It's governed by the planet Mercury, so it can be quite agile in the way it thinks, but it does like to see tangible rewards. And the good thing I can tell you is that the moon is just getting to the end, but does forge a very receptive landing place for the energy of the ascendant. So I think it's possible that that can bring some constructive energies coming through. But unfortunately, the moon in the third house on the Anarctic degree and also in the sign of Libra does point towards the potential for indecision, but it is squaring with Pluto. Pluto continuing its mighty journey through the sign of Capricorn, and the moon squaring Pluto is very complex and can lead to domination. Domination of the emotional sphere, and that is a concerning aspect. But this midpoint for this particular event is just under 15 degrees in Capricorn and it is actually conjunct the fixed star Virgo, which can be quite artistic and quite fortunate in some ways, but it does point towards the potential for double dealing. So that's something to be mindful of. But it is forging a very helpful aspect to a great link between Jupiter and Mercury, which are in the 7th house. Now, I think that does offer some hope for some kind of improvement in negotiations, settlements. We all know what's been raging in the centre of Europe, and we all would like it to come to a close as soon as possible. So that conjunction between Jupiter, which controls international affairs, and Mercury, not at its best in Pisces, it's true, but those two together in the 7th house can bring some potential for good fortune. They're also in a very positive link with Uranus in the 9th house, international affairs. So hopefully some surprise developments could ensue over the next 13 weeks. But unfortunately, folks, and I've got to be really truthful about this, Mars, the planet of war, is in a direct right angle with Uranus when this event occurs. And you can see that Mars is in the 6th house of organisation and structure. It may be in the humanitarian sign of Aquarius. It is close to Venus, which definitely has charm in itself, but because they square with Uranus, I think that points towards a lot of disruption, a lot of dislocation in terms of the order. And you can see the 9th house where Uranus is, so that points towards chaos potentially around international affairs. And Mars square Uranus is an aspect of conflict and sudden conflict, and it can be where people absolutely resist any kind of control, or it may be where people try to impose control. It can work in two different ways. But the moon also forges a quincunx with the sun on this event. So the moon and the sun are not really collaborating. You can see the sun in Aries is in the 8th house of deep transformations, but that can be to do with death. And the moon in the 3rd house, right at the end of Libra, is just not collaborating with the sun as we would like. So they can be talking, but whether it's being played out in a constructive way in that 8th house energy is another matter. However, pleasingly, Pluto does forge a very positive link with the midheaven. So the power of Pluto can work in lots of different ways. If we don't use Plutonian energy wisely, it can lead to domination, control, and repression, but also it can lead to pushing back on those things. And the midheaven is the world at large, and the North Node, which is almost like the collective consciousness of us all, is aligned to that midheaven and in a trine to Pluto. So the 9th house can be about higher justices and higher truths. So that does provide a ray of hope too, along with that conjunction between Jupiter and Mercury. But on the 22nd of March, Mars and Uranus do come into an exact square. And as happened with Mars and Pluto coming into an exact conjunction on the 3rd of March, which I predicted would lead to an invasion of Ukraine by Russia, I predicted that in advance. Unfortunately, that did happen, but it happened just before the trigger point of the exact connection on the aspect. So just to summarise, the ascendant of this particular event in terms of universal central time is in Virgo, which is looking for order. We do have the moon struggling in its relationship with Pluto, so Pluto can dominate the emotional and physical needs for people to have shelter and security. That is disturbing. Pluto does actually forge a disassociate sextile with the sun, which is more encouraging. There could be some transformations that are positive, but that square between the moon and Pluto and the quincunx between the moon and the sun, they're less hopeful. But we do have a great link between Pluto, the North Node, and the midheaven, and a lovely link between the midpoint between the sun and the moon, and also Jupiter and Mercury in the 7th house. When I was looking back at the winter solstice, it really wasn't a great chart, and you could see what has played out was really foretold. You know, it was very prescient. I think this chart does have concerns, especially about dislocation. You know, there's going to be a lot of dislocation. And it could be that there's going to be very ruthless energies applied from this chart as well. But I see a lot of hope in this chart that I didn't see in the other one. So I think there could be a shifting of power in this whole event in a way that may surprise quite a few of us, I feel. Now, please stay with us as I go, or with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs. Now, for you, Aries, this is manna literally from heaven. The sun moving into your sign, particularly when we've had that pack of energy in Pisces, you probably felt very withdrawn, not quite as bubbly as you would normally like to be, perhaps even a little bit anxious. The sun moving into your sign brings you into the present. But it is important because we still have Mercury, Jupiter and Neptune all in the sign of Pisces. It is important to stay connected to the more emotional and sensitive side of your situation. But generally, you're going to start to feel that your physical vitality comes up quite soon. And that will be particularly marked for you once Mercury moves into your sign. And that's going to be a real launch forwards that you're going to appreciate. Now, Taurus, for you, the sun is moving into your 12th house. And because you've had such a lot of energy in your sector of friendship, I think it's kind of saying to you, it's not necessarily the amount of friends you've got, it's the quality of them. And sincerity and trust are going to be important over the next 3 months for you. But equally, I think this collection of energy in Pisces and the vernal equinox could see you forging some deeper alliances or developing a more spiritual side of your nature, which gives you a lot of encouragement about how you can go forward. So it can be a time of great evolution and excitement for you, I feel. Now, Gemini, the sun moving into the 11th house for you, as it does on this event, that's very future forward orientated, very much about groups and the collective, but that pack of energy in the sign of Pisces has been very much about success, goals and ambitions. I really do feel the next 3 months it's going to be a case of who as much as what you know, and that's going to be very important to your progress. Now, Cancer, for you, the sun moving onto this fixed point, the first cardinal quadrant, is critical for your goals and ambitions. And because you still have that collective of energy in the sign of Pisces to support you, I think some kind of change around your work, your worldly interaction or your worldly standing is entirely possible over the next 3 months. But if you want to raise your profile and receive more recognition, this is a wonderful opportunity to go for it. Now, Leo, obviously the sun moving into a fellow fire sign in the fire triplicity is really positive because all that energy in Pisces is very soggy. So getting some fire into the mix is something you're really going to appreciate. If you haven't been able to go on a holiday or a vacation because of COVID, the sun moving into this part of your scope gives you a big push to be much more adventurous in the weeks to come. But equally, you could be looking at your financial situation and trying to be much more enterprising there. So if you're thinking of starting a business or an enterprise, this set of influences gathered together in Pisces plus the vernal equinox could be very good for that over the next 13 weeks. Which brings us to Virgo. Now, for you, Virgo, the spring equinox sees the sun move into your sector of evolution. Now, this could be where you become more devoted to some causes or a person, or in a practical sense, you're thinking more carefully about your resources in the long term. But equally, with all that energy in the 7th house, there's been a lot of discussion recently. And if you have met somebody new in business, through your work, a neighbour, a friend, or even a lover, I think what the sun moving into the 8th house is asking you to do is really evaluate the worth of that new connection or the worth of any existing alliances you already have. Now, Libra, for you, I think this is a glorious transition because it moves the sun onto your 7th house cusp of your sun, and that really helps you to demonstrate, start to engage more with your key skill set, which is in reaching into situations, listening carefully, liaising with others, trying to find points of mutual agreement. Because the sixth house energy that's been going on for you is very practical. But also because of the energy of Neptune, you may have been feeling a little bit overwrought with all the things that you're trying to do. I think the sun moving into the seventh house isn't just about relationships, it's also about how we engage with others, how we set our boundaries, how we are more competitive or combative if we need to be. So the next 13 weeks for you really is a time to demonstrate to people that you can and are very much a leader, but you want to be a leader where you're recognized and respected in the way you wish to be. Now, Scorpio, the sun moving into this part of your horoscope is to do with all the practicalities in life. So perfect for that spring clean wherever you are in the world, because the sixth house is about our life organization, how smoothly things run, diet, nutrition, exercise, where we work. Do we get much personal satisfaction from it? Are we helping others, or are we just taking money and going through the process? That could become profoundly unsatisfying for you over the next 3 months, because the creative energy in Pisces wants you to mix form and function. You want things to be much more outgoing, interactive and demonstrative in terms of your talents. And if you are just going through those motions, that's going to become much less satisfying for you. Now, Sagittarius, just like Leo, the sun moving into your fire triplicity, fantastic. And for you, this is house 5, one of the best houses of all, of course, because that's about romance. It's about being much more self-confident. It's about really going on the front foot in the way that you are absolutely brilliant at doing. But that pack of energy in Pisces has really been slowing you down. It's been making you think about some very deeply emotional family and home-based issues. Now the sun's asking you to engage, demonstrate all your talents, but all those energies in Pisces suggest to me you still need to be mindful of how it feels. Capricorn, the sun moving into the sign of Aries and the spring equinox is about home, emotion, family. And because of all those energies in the third house, that's been giving you a good boost in terms of mixing and mingling with neighbours, with siblings, sharing your brilliant ideas. A home-based business could really take off for you in the next 3 months, entirely possible, or one that's already ongoing can pick up momentum. But the fourth house is also where we need to feel secure and shelter. And despite all that chatting that's been going on recently, what's the value of that chatting? We're all assailed by so much information these days. So don't be surprised if you do decide to step back a little bit over the next 3 months and create more space for yourself. Have some moments of pure tranquility, peace and reflection. Which brings us to Aquarius. Well, for you, this is going to see a big pickup in the pace of life. There's been a massive emphasis on resources, money, your values, and the kind of earthier strands of life. But now, you being an air sign, the sun moving into your third house is very redolent of Gemini energy. So that quick-wittedness that you often have, and the fact that Venus and Mars are together in your sign, gives you a great opportunity to really demonstrate to people how smart you can be. So whether it's about writing, technology, information, or just being downright amusing, now you're going to be in top form. But also, I think you can use all that quick-wittedness to continue to work on the income in your situation. And if that has been affected by COVID, or even the recent dispute in Ukraine, do have maximum faith in your ability to turn things round. Don't, if you can, fall into a cycle of fearfulness, because have absolute faith that your whole array of different approaches does give you a magnificent set of assets to change however things are at the start of this period. If they're not so good, believe it will come in your direction in the next 13 weeks. Which brings us finally to Pisces. So the sun moving into Aries and out of your sign signals when you want to see a reward for all the hard work you've been investing on the single-minded projects that have been occupying you for some time. Now, you could see instant results. It's possible. It may be you're going to have to wait until Venus moves into the sign of Aries to really get that green light. But keep going with the creativity, because you still have Jupiter and Neptune, your rulers, together, which is really, really helpful. And of course, Mercury in your sign may be debilitated technically, but it's given you a fluidity that you're very good with because of your mutability. So your ideas can be shifting and moving around, but start to work on the ones that start to take hold in the earth, and you start to see shoots of growth. Those are the ones that you really should pour the energy into. But your core values, what's really important to you, feeling that you are secure in your life in a material way, is going to be important over the next 13 weeks. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Please stay safe, take care, and goodbye for now.